This presentation will introduce you to the Military Sealift Command. It will provide an overview and some history. Future presentations will introduce the various programs in detail that the Military Sealift Command operates. The Military Sealift Command is a Navy organization that controls the replenishment military transport ships of the Department of Defense. It has responsibility for providing sealift and ocean transportation for all U.S. military services and government agencies. It first came into existence in July of 1949, and it was known then as the Military Sea Transportation Service, or MSTS. It became solely responsible for the DoD ocean transport needs. It was renamed the Military Sealift Command in 1970. The fleet is made up of a core of ships owned by the Navy and others under long-term charter augmented by short-term or voyage chartered ships. The Navy-owned ships carry a blue and gold stack colors and are in service with the prefix USNS, or United States Naval Ship, rather than the in commission USS prefix. They have hull numbers as the equivalent commissioned ship would have, but have the prefix T and are civilian manned by either civil service mariners or contract crews of merchant mariners. In the case of the special mission and sealift ships, ships on charter or that or equivalent retain commercial colors and bear the normal merchant owner's marking without any hull numbers. MSC reports to the Department of Defense's Transportation Command for defense transportation matters, to the Navy's Fleet Forces Command for Navy unique matters, and to the Assistant Secretary of the Navy, Acquisition and Research and Development for procurement policy and oversight. The Military Sealift Command is organized into 5 programs: Combat Logistics Force, Special Mission, Pre-Positioning, Service Support, and Sealift. The Sealift program provides the bulk of MSC's supply carrying operations and operates tankers for fuel transport and dry cargo ships that transport equipment, vehicles, helicopters, ammunition, and supplies. The Combat Logistics Force role is to directly replenish ships that are underway at sea, enabling them to deploy for long periods of time. The Special Mission Program operates vessels for unique military or other government tasks, such as oceanographic and hydrographic science, missile flight data collection, and submarine support. The Pre-Positioning Program sustains the U.S. military's forward presence strategy by deploying ships in key areas prior to their actual needs. The Combat Logistics Force is the part of MSC most associated with directly supporting the Navy. A 1972 study concluded that it would be cheaper for civilians to man these support vessels. It is the American equivalent of the British Royal Fleet Auxiliary. It was formerly called the Naval Fleet Auxiliary Force. After a 2012 reorganization, this program now maintains 32 government-operated fleet underway replenishment ships. Some of its ships at that time were transferred to the new Service Support Program. Combat Logistics Force ships include the Dry Cargo and Ammunition Ships, or the TAKE, the Fast Combat Support Ship, or the TAOE, and the Fleet Replenishment Oilers, or the TAO. The Special Mission Program controls 24 ships that provide operating platforms for services for unique government missions: oceanographic and hydrographic survey, underwater surveillance, missile flight data collection and tracking. Acoustics research and submarine support are among the services this program provides. Special missions work for many different U.S. and Department of Defense customers, including NAVSEA, the Air Force, the Oceanographer, or the Navy, as examples. These ships, like those of the Combat Logistics Force, have the haze gray and the blue and gold stack bands. This program now maintains all the ships in the oceanographic support, many of which are contract operated. A number of its ships were transferred to the Support Services Program. The Pre-Positioning Program is an element of the Navy's strategy for power projection into the 21st century. It is a key element of sea basing. The afloat pre-positioning provides the military equipment and supplies for a contingency forward deployed in key areas before it's needed. The program supports the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, and the Defense Logistics Agency. These ships remain at sea, ready to deploy on short notice, with the equipment, fuel, and supplies needed to initially support military forces. The program consists of 34 ships plus 2 aviation support ships, which are kept in a reduced operating status. The Service Support Program was created as a result of the 2012 reorganization. It consists of 4 government-owned ships formerly in the Special Missions Program, 2 submarine tenders, 1 command ship, and 1 cabling and repair ship, as well as the 10 government-owned and operated ships that used to be part of the Naval Fleet Auxiliary Force, the hospital ships, 4 Fleet Ocean tugs, and 4 salvage and rescue ships. It also includes the new mobile expeditionary bases. The mission of the Sealift program is to provide ocean transportation to the Department of Defense by meeting sealift requirements in peace, contingency, and war. This is achieved through the use of commercial vessel charters, large medium-speed roll-on roll-off ships, and the Maritime Administration's Ready Reserve Force, which includes the 8 former MSC fast sealift ships. Sealift is divided into 3 separate offices: Tanker Project Office, Dry Cargo Project Office, and the Surge Project Office. MSC is headquartered in the Naval Station, Norfolk, Virginia. That is a result of the 2012 reorganization. They have 12 worldwide ship support units, which now report to the MSC operational area commands in their respective areas of responsibility. These are responsible for the crewing, training, equipping, and maintaining the government-owned and government-operated ships. MSC Atlantic is also in Norfolk. MSC Pacific is located in San Diego, California. There's an MSC Europe and Africa in Naples, Italy, MSC Central in Bahrain, and MSC Far East in Singapore. Formerly, the ship support units had reported to the Military Sealift Fleet Support Command. In addition, MSC controls 44 Naval Reserve units which support its operations around the globe. As of the last fiscal year, MSC operator-controlled around 170 ships. It employed about 9,500 people, approximately 90% of which were civilians and 80% were seagoing mariners on board their vessels. Sealift in the United States has a long history. As early as 1847, the U.S. Army and Navy chartered American merchant ships for the Mexican-American War. The Quartermaster of the Army recommended at the end of that war that the Navy be given responsibility for all waterborne transportation requirements for the military. However, each service managed their own sea transportation throughout the 19th and early 20th century. By World War II, 4 different government agencies conducted military sealift functions: the Naval Overseas Transportation Service, the Army Transportation Service, the U.S. Maritime Commission's War Shipping Administration, and the Fleet Support Services. To oversee these organizations, the Joint Chiefs of Staff had to establish the Joint Military Transportation Command. By December of 1948, the Secretary of Defense issued a statement saying that all military sea transportation, including the Army's, would be placed under the Navy's command. However, issues with funding held up the transfer of the function to the Navy. It wasn't until Lewis Johnson became Secretary of Defense that a memorandum was issued in July of 49 detailing the service responsibilities and the funding for the Navy's new military sea transportation service. They became the single managing agency for the Department of Defense's ocean transportation needs. They assumed the responsibility for providing sealift and ocean transportation for all the Department of Defense. The new command set up subcommands, Atlantic, Pacific, so on and so forth. 9 months after its creation, MSTS responded to the challenge of the Korean War. 11 days after the initial invasion of South Korea, MSTS deployed the 24th Infantry Division from Japan to Busan, South Korea. In addition to transporting troops and combat equipment to and from Korea, command ships supplied U.S. bases and distant early warning line construction sites and supported U.S. nation-building efforts in Europe, Africa, and the Far East. The 1960s brought the conflict in Southeast Asia. From 65 to 69, MSTS moved almost 54 million tons of combat equipment and supplies and 8 million tons of fuel to Vietnam. The Vietnam War also marked the last use of MSC troop ships for personnel movements. Currently, most U.S. troops are pre-positioned by air. MSTS was renamed the Military Sealift Command in 1970. In 1971, the Chief of Naval Operations, Admiral Zumwalt, proposed the use of MSC ships for direct support of the fleet at sea. Previously, these civilian manned ships had only been used in point-to-point transport of cargo. To determine the feasibility of this concept, Admiral Zumwalt directed the formation of a special study group to recommend how the Navy could better utilize the MSC fleet to save both manpower and money. The cost of training personnel after the advent of the all-volunteer Navy made it imperative that seagoing personnel be assigned to the more complex warships of the fleet whenever possible. The study concluded that significant savings could be achieved if civilian mariners could be substituted for uniformed sailors in the fleet support ships. In 1972, a joint U.S. Navy Maritime Administration project called Charter Log was established to test whether or not Union-crewed merchant ships could provide some or all of the fleet support services normally provided by Navy oilers. Extensive trials were conducted using a civilian manned merchant tanker, the SS Ern Elizabeth, equipped with both a alongside and a stern refueling gear, to test the feasibility of augmenting but not replacing the service forces with ships of the U.S. Merchant Marine. The success of Charter Log led to the formation of the Naval Fleet Auxiliary Force. The Navy oiler USS Toluga, TAO 62, was the next step. It was placed under MSC control. Decommissioned in May of 72, it was transferred to MSC and redesignated TAO 62. After that transfer, the ship underwent an overhaul that included refurbishment of equipment, gear, and refueling rigs, modification of the crew's quarters, and removal of armament. The ship entered service with a crew of 105 civilian mariners hired by the government, augmented by a 16-member naval complement. By the time the USNS Henry J. Kaiser, TAO 187, entered service in December of 86, the Navy had transferred 5 Second World War vintage tankers of the Mississippian class and 6 1950s-built Neosho class fleet oilers to MSC. By the early 2000s, the Navy had transferred all of the logistics force ships to MSC. Oilers, supply ships, ammunition ships, fast combat support, fleet tugs, and salvage and rescue. It should be pointed out that the supply and ammunition ships have been retired and replaced by a new combination ship, the TAKE. During the 70s and 80s, MSC provided the Department of Defense with ocean transportation. During the first Persian Gulf War, consisting of Operation Desert Shield and Operation Desert Storm, MSC was the largest source of defense transportation of any nation involved. The command delivered more than 12 million tons of wheeled and tracked vehicles, helicopters, ammunition, dry cargo, fuel, and other supplies and equipment during the war. At the high point of the war, more than 230 government-owned and chartered ships were delivering the larger part of the international arsenal that defeated Saddam Hussein in Iraq. MSC was also involved in the 2003 invasion of Iraq, delivering about 61 million square feet of cargo and 1,100,000,000 gallons of fuel by the end of the first year of that conflict. By the end of 2006, from the beginning of the global war on terrorism to the operations of enduring and Iraqi freedom, the military Sealift Command had moved more than 88 million square feet of combat equipment for troops in theaters worldwide, and it delivered 8,808,000,000 gallons of fuel. Here are some websites that would provide more information if you are interested.